everyone! Welcome to a not episode of Animation Pilgrimage. Today we are here, that is me, Tennille Flowers, and my husband,
Sean Flowers,
and we are going to answer some of your Qs.
with our A's.
Yeah.
It's a question and answer time.
Yeah, we posted the video a couple of weeks back asking you guys for some questions, and we did say in that video that we weren't going to answer every single question, so we've just picked out a few that we are going to go over really quick.
Yeah, I think it's about 13-ish questions, many of which were asked by multiple people and stuff like that. So, yeah, I think we'll just go ahead and
Get started
with questions that some people kind of asked, but also just clarification time.
Yeah.
Question 1. What is Animation Pilgrimage?
What movies does it cover?
Yeah, what all movies does it cover? Does it cover TV movies? What about 3D movies? Live action sort of movies? What about stop motion? Puppets? Just, what does it cover, Tennille?
It covers a lot of things, and it also excludes a lot of things. So, okay. When we were trying to come up with Animation Pilgrimage, my first idea was like, well, let's cover all of it. Just everything. And Sean's like, that's a lot. I'm like, you're right.
Because there's a lot of schlock that comes out and never makes it to theaters.
Yeah. So we narrowed it down to theatrical releases.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also kind of included another requirement of like, or is historically important to the field of animation. So that's why we do things like the shorts episodes, to make sure that we get things like the beginning of animation. Because at first, when we were talking about it, it's like, oh, well, Snow White will be one of the first episodes we cover. And I was like, well, but you can't really talk about Snow White
without talking about the beginnings of animation.
Exactly, because it's like, just starting at Snow White already skips so much history.
That skips like, what, 30 years or something?
Right.
Of people doodling around with animation.
Yeah, so I definitely wanted to include non-theatrical releases for stuff that I felt was really important to cover. But as far as, like, okay, what Animation Pilgrimage is, we watch every theatrically released animated film in chronological order.
And it doesn't matter if it was released in theaters in America or another country. We will watch all of it as long as we can find it.
Yeah,
that's a big clause of, we need to be able to find this movie, preferably with some sort of subbed or dubbed, like subtitles or like voice dubbing for foreign films, because unfortunately, we only know English.
We're not bilingual.
We're dumb Americans, and we only know one language, which is dumb and frustrating, but that's the way it is. So we do need to find at least subtitled versions of all the foreign films we want to watch.
And then,
does it cover TV movies?
TV movies are, again, the case of...
Mostly not.
Yeah, we mostly won't cover them unless they were also released to theaters somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And or are historically important to animation as a medium. So something like... and I need to do research on this to see if this is the case. But, like, the Charlie Brown Christmas special.
Yeah, I don't know if that was ever released to...
I don't know if that's ever
theaters.
been released to theaters. And it is like a TV movie, kind of. It's not movie length. But that's something that we're probably going to cover in the future, just because so many people are so familiar with it. And I feel it's fairly important.
Additionally, we'll probably cover at least a couple of the Rankin Bass stop-motion Christmas specials.
Yeah.
Because even if... I have no idea if people even know what those are from other countries, but at least here in America, those things are culturally significant.
Right. 3D movies and stop-motion count. Yeah, they count, of course.
Puppets? No.
Puppets, we went back and forth on whether we should talk about them. I was kind of saying like, well, yeah, but the Muppets and stuff, kind of. And you're like, not really. And then like we asked some commenters and people who watch the show, and they kind of agreed with Sean. It's like you guys already have a lot to cover.
Yeah.
So I would just exclude puppets.
And more often
agree.
Yeah, and more often than not, puppets are with live action, so there's no real animation being going on in these films. Which is the difference between stop motion, because stop motion, you do people do have to sit there and very carefully move the puppets and like formulate it all out.
They're doing animation,
just in a 3D medium.
Right, it's almost the same as computer animation. Just
honestly, yeah, because
like how
you got this model or a puppet essentially that you are moving
frame by frame.
As
3D animation just allows you to move along in the timeline and like go back and mess with things the way that stop motion doesn't really allow.
So hand-drawn films, 3D movies when we finally get to them, stop motion films are the big 3 types of movies that we're going to be watching on this journey.
Yeah. The main reason I had for wanting to include puppets is because puppeteers, when they are successful, use a lot of the same fundamentals that animators do to bring their characters to life. But, like, that's a comment I would just make on every single Muppets episode, and then I would have, like, nothing else to contribute. So that's another reason why puppets are excluded.
Yeah.
When it comes to...
Because we just don't know a whole lot about puppets personally.
Yeah.
And we would hate to, like...
Say something stupid
and or just fumble around for a really long time on episodes we have nothing worth talking about.
Yeah. When it comes to like live action movies, that more so falls under the category of...
Is it important?
So, Who Framed Roger Rabbit? Yes, we will definitely be watching. Cool World? Yes, we will definitely be watching that. Even movies like Mary Poppins... Yes, even though it only has a little bit of animation in it,
it's significant.
Still worth talking about. Mary Poppins is like a milestone film. Mm-hmm. Not just for animation, but...
The original Pete's Dragon? No.
Bedknobs and Broomsticks? No.
Another thing that we're going to bring up...
The new Yogi Bear movie, or the Smurfs 2000s
that's one thing.
movies.
That's one thing we didn't hit on is new movies with 3D characters interacting fully in a live action universe, such as the new Smurfs movies with Neil Patrick Harris. Mm-hmm. That's his name, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I was just making sure I didn't say the wrong person. Those movies, or like the new Yogi Bear movie that people have already forgotten about, or that Marmaduke movie.
Yeah, it is hardly 3D animated.
We're not going to talk about those.
No.
Other movies similar to that genre are like Transformers or Avatar with the blue people. Things like that where it's pretty much all blue screen special effects we will not be talking about, because otherwise we will have to talk about every film that comes out forever.
Yeah, because animation has dominated the industry, except Hollywood still wants to pretend that animation doesn't exist.
So if these movies want to pretend that they're not animated films, fine, we'll just not talk about you then.
Yeah.
So we won't be talking about any of the live-action Disney remakes that are going on right now either.
Right. So... Before you write a comment, in the future that's like, will you be watching blank movie? Like, honestly, all you need to do is, type into Google that movie and see if it has a theatrical release.
Yeah.
If it does, yes, we will watch it. If it doesn't, then probably not.
Yeah, and pay attention to that date, because that will give you an idea of how far into the future it's going to be before we finally get around to watching that film.
Right. In every episode of Animation Pilgrimage, I put the year the movie came out. That way people who don't watch every episode know where we are time-wise.
You at least have a rough idea of how long it's going to take to start getting into movies that you might actually have grown up with and are more likely to be interested in general.
Yeah.
So, yeah. All right, so that's kind of the first section of all the questions that...
Yeah, and that question came from a fair number of people, so we aren't going to name,
that came from
person.
a lot of different people, and has been on multiple different videos, and it's just something we need to, clarify and address again, and I'm sure we'll have to do it again in the future. But that's just how it happens when new people come to the channel, which is fine.
Yep.
The first question I put was, I specifically grabbed Darkfire Daku's question of, how did you get the idea to start Animation Pilgrimage? And there was plenty of other people that also asked this question. I guess I can start this one, I guess.
Yeah.
It actually started from, we were, this last year, in 2017, we decided to start going and seeing all the new movies that came out, like new animated films that came out that we could find, and review those. And then I was like, these are a lot of fun, but what if we talked about other films, like older films?
Specifically because I love animation history.
And you're like, oh, what if we did it in chronological order?
Well, yeah, actually, you asked first. You're like, well, what if we did a review on all the Disney films?
But then it's even as I was saying that, I was like, well, no.
A lot of
many people have
do
done
that. Yeah.
It's what can we do differently that we would enjoy that would help us, I guess,
that would bring something new.
That would bring something new to the whole watching all of blank films and reviewing them or something. Or well, what if we just watched all of it?
Yeah.
And that's pretty much how we got here.
Yeah, and so I'm like, okay, well, how would we even start this project? And luckily, I was able to go I was like, because how am I going to get research on all animated film? And luckily, the internet is a fantastic source, and I was able to just go list of animated films. And Wikipedia actually has a list of all the animated films.
As far as we can tell, it's the most complete list that exists anywhere, so it's the one we're using.
Yep. And of course, we make changes to it where we need to.
Yeah.
But yeah, we just talked about it, and like I said, because I love animation history, it was yes, we need to do this and do them in order so that it's just a history class on animation.
Yeah, because learning is great.
Yeah.
And hey, we've only been doing this for half a year now, and we've already experienced a number of new movies that we hadn't seen before, and a lot of those were great.
Yeah. Well, that was another reason we started this, because we really wanted to see
more good
all of
movies.
Animation.
Yeah.
It's we know we're going to end up seeing a lot of garbage, but we also know that we're going to see some really cool, really different stuff.
That we have never even heard of before.
Or may have never even have thought to look up before, because...
Oh, yeah, no. I would have never thought of looking up, the first Russian animated films ever, because those are great.
Yeah, and I'm so glad we've gotten to watch it so far. All the films we've gotten to see so far. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. All right.
Our next question is from Shadowed King, and they ask, how long does it usually take to watch a movie, review it, edit, and upload the video? Do you guys enjoy the process? What's your favorite part about it?
Okay. Yeah, I think maybe one or two people also asked a similar question, but
okay.
Not a whole lot of other people. It was mostly just one person. So yeah, how long does it take? Well, I mean, we have to watch the movie, which generally takes...
However long the movie
is, so that's generally 60 minutes to an hour and a half.
But before we record the episode, after we watch the movie, I try to go and do some research. Or if it's a movie we've already seen before, I try to be prepared and do research beforehand. So that then when we do the episode, I'm refreshed. Because a lot of this animation stuff, especially when it comes to Disney, I do have a lot of it just stored in my head.
But you want to refresh
But I want to
yourself.
refresh so that I make sure I'm not saying the wrong thing, and there's
Getting
already
it confused with other movies or something.
right, and there's already been times where I've said the completely wrong thing, and so I'll put a thing up on the screen saying like, no, this was not
That was not correct. It was
Ward
this.
Kimball, this was Freddie Moore or something. You know, so
Yeah, and then we generally give the movie at least a couple days before we review it, just so we have time to think about it more. If we like come up with more thoughts, and it's a little more cohesive than like, oh my gosh, we just saw this movie, and then whoa, this one thing happened or something. Like it gives us some time to collect our thoughts and
reflect
on it, which is part of your process of like reviewing it and stuff, or
researching
it and stuff. And then we record the review, which is generally the length of the review. Sometimes we have like every now and again we've had to like re-record an episode, but that doesn't.
We had to re-record Bambi.
Yeah,
Bambi took a long time to review because I wanted to make sure that episode I did quite a bit of research to say a lot of interesting facts about the film. And then
I
the
just
first
had
time
nothing to say.
We did the review, you had nothing to say. I think you just weren't in the mood to record.
No, I really wasn't, which is why we re-recorded it. We waited a day and then we re-recorded it again so that it would be a much better episode, and which is good.
And it was a much better episode.
It was a much better episode, and I think it's probably one of our most viewed episodes.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's good that I
got your head back in the game.
Yeah, got my head in the game. The editing process can generally take quite a while.
Yeah.
And that's just what happens.
Yeah, luckily I have it down to a system pretty well, but the editing process typically takes me like
for an hour-long review, how long would you say it generally takes you to get that done?
I mean, sometimes it can only take me like 2 hours, but sometimes it takes me more like 4 hours.
Mm-hmm. It really depends on how often we switch subjects and start talking about different parts of the film.
Yeah.
And then it also depends on if we're watching a Disney film, which will actually try to copyright strike our videos, so we have to put in a lot more like
concept art
instead of actual video, stuff like that.
Right. And I always like to just listen back to the whole thing to make sure that
you didn't miss anything?
Yeah, and especially because we've got like a cat and stuff. Sometimes she's in the background making noises, and so I try to cut out parts where she does that.
Heck, I think there's 1 or 2 episodes
where I forget
where we forgot that part, and like I don't know if those were on Animation Pilgrimage or some of
I think they were on our current
reviews,
movie reviews.
where the cat is just terrorizing things and we're like yelling at her.
Like, Peridot! Stop it!
And then the actual uploading of the video, our internet is garbage. Mm-hmm. So thankfully we have a different location where we can go and upload in a more timely manner, but it still probably takes like an hour to upload an hour-long video. Mm-hmm. If we were to upload it from our home internet, it would probably take us like
a few days.
Yeah, a couple days at minimum.
Yeah. So the whole process from beginning to end
probably takes like a week.
Yeah.
Like of off and on work.
Yeah, definitely of off and on work, because obviously we do upload Animation Pilgrimage once a week, mm-hmm. and we've kept up with that pretty well for most of Animation Pilgrimage now.
Yeah.
But like sometimes we'll do multiple episodes at once, so it's like I'm getting 2 episodes done in a week, or
which is good because we don't necessarily have time every single week to just do the whole process all together. So we'll often we'll watch 2 or 3 films and then we'll record 2 or 3 films.
Yeah. And then obviously too, it's like I'm not just working on Animation Pilgrimage, it's like both of us have day jobs, and then I also try to work on Simi Speaks when I'm not working on Animation Pilgrimage. Mm-hmm. So yeah.
Yeah.
Our favorite part of the process for me is probably doing the research and the recording. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, obviously watching the movie is generally pretty enjoyable, unless it's a bad movie, and then that's the worst part of the whole process. Yeah, so it kind of comes and goes with which.
It depends on the movie.
It depends on the movie. It's like either watching the movie or yeah, definitely. I think recording the episode is probably one of my favorite parts. Yeah. All right, moving on to Blue Maroon or Sarah Goron 3.
Hi.
What?
Because I talk to this person often, so I'm just
okay.
saying hi.
All right, I didn't know that. In your opinion, do you think hand-drawn animation and the animation industry we know today would have happened without Walt Disney?
No.
Yeah, no.
I mean, I think animation would still be a thing, but I mean, we're also talking about like over 100 years of history now. I mean, not specifically when it comes to Walt. When it comes to Walt, we're talking more like 70 years of animation history. But like Walt Disney and his animators, they made animation a lasting art form, and it's hard to
Without
say
their
for sure that
incredible
nobody else
success,
would have come along and boosted animation up to that
that
level. But we do know that for a long time in the 20s, a lot of people just saw animation as like a fad. Like it was just like this cool novelty thing. And then it was thanks to animators. Gosh, I can't remember his name. But there's specific moments in animation history, and they usually come from the Disney company, where they make steps in making the characters more real. And you can see the characters thinking. There's this scene that is talked about in like almost every animation history book of Pluto on the ice, and you can see like Pluto trying to figure out why his feet are sliding on the ice, and like that's a big character animation moment. And that came from Disney, and it's moments like those that have helped animation continue on for so long.
Indeed. I don't really have a whole lot to add to that.
So yeah, briefly, I think that there's a possibility that other animators would have come along to push animation to where it is today.
But it probably would have taken a lot longer.
But it would have been different, and it would have taken longer, and Walt Disney definitely shaped animation history as we know it.
Oh yeah, so much. Next up, we have Katrina Tomaldon. Hopefully I said that right. Do you guys think it will ever be possible for hand-drawn animation to make a resurgence, maybe similar to that of stop-motion animation due to Leica Studios? Or do you think its glory days are behind it?
I hate this topic because people are so convinced one way or the other that yes, hand-drawn animation can make a comeback and will. And then there are others that are like, no, 2D animation is dead. It's been dead for years and people should just get over it. And do I think it's possible? Yes.
Yeah.
I think it would just take one really good, really financially successful, that's the key part. It has to be super financially successful hand-drawn animation film that blows away a mass audience for hand-drawn animation to make a comeback. Now that's a big order.
Yeah, it's a really big ask, but it's possible.
And one of the things that people who say that there's no way that hand-drawn animation could ever make a comeback is people...
They're only thinking in the terms of theatrically released films.
Or Disney, but what I was going to say was that that a lot of them are thinking in terms of, oh, well, hand-drawn animation's just too expensive to do anymore. We've lost masters of the art form And so, like, we just don't know how to do hand-drawn animation correctly anymore. And that's
bullcrap.
true, but also bullshit.
Just go to the internet. You'll find 5,000 people that animate.
Are passionate about hand-drawn animation. And then there's another group of people who are like, well, animation should always be moving forward. And they like to use Walt as a, like, flag bearer here. Being like, Walt always did the new thing and da-da-da-da. And I was like, Walt was not an animator.
Yup.
And Walt...
He was a
you
story
cannot
guy. He was
speak
an
for-
idea man. He was not an animation expert by any means.
You cannot speak for Walt. He's been dead for 60 years.
It's like, if 3D animation had come around while Walt was still alive, would he have jumped on it?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, most definitely.
Oh, yeah. He probably would have jumped on it with a passion unlike any had seen before, but...
But that didn't happen, so we'll never really know how Walt felt about that.
As far as the expenses thing goes, though, traditionally drawn animation is getting cheaper and cheaper
To do every
year.
every year, just because technology keeps getting better, and the stuff you can do with computers
Yeah.
saves the time and effort.
There's
so much.
another group of people who say, like, oh, 3D animation is just 2D animation better.
That is
So why
incorrect.
would you not do 3D animation? And to you, good sir, I say bullshit. Because they're two completely different art forms.
Meet me out back for a fisticuffs.
Fight me!
Because they're completely different art forms.
3D animation, like we were talking about
is a
earlier, is
bunch of
more
puppets.
akin to stop motion animation than it is to traditionally drawn.
You're moving a bunch of different puppets around as compared to... it's like you're...
Actually drawing something.
Yeah, it's drawing versus affecting systems.
And the same can be said, like, okay, there's a big difference between, like, quote-unquote flash animation or puppet symbols in Flash as compared to hand-drawn animation. Like, those are two completely different art forms.
Yeah, if anything, I would say that's a better in-between between traditionally animated films and 3D films.
Yeah. Because at least you had to have drawn the original
Pieces to begin
Yeah.
with. But I mean, even in 3D modeling,
You have to make-
there's someone that modeled that, and then there's someone that rigged it and made it able to move, and then you have someone else that's actually moving it,
Yeah.
and then you have someone else that does lighting and blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what were we even talking about?
Is it possible for hand-drawn animation to make a resurgence? Yes.
Yes.
Do I think it's going to happen? I mean, do I
Are
think
its
it's going to happen?
glory days behind it?
No.
No.
I mean, there's still beautiful hand-drawn animations being made today outside of the U.S.
Yeah, outside of the U.S. and or not in theaters. Not in the Hollywood scope are you going to find the amazing 2D animation.
Yeah.
You need to look elsewhere because it definitely still exists. It's still out there. I know Glenn Keane is still doing amazing stuff. Japan and Korea are constantly making like 2D films.
Andreas Deja's working on his film Mushka.
I know there's like a steampunk film being made by another former Disney
Hollow
animator.
Blue, that might have gotten canceled.
Okay.
I don't know.
I know that was a thing that was
I've not heard anything
possibly
about
happening.
it.
I think he was trying to get crowdfunding.
Yeah.
I don't
Well,
know.
and it got crowdfunded, but I
Okay.
don't know what
Where it
happened
went from
after
that?
that.
Yeah.
I haven't heard anything for a while.
And then also like I can't think of
Tom Moore,
I think so.
the Irish
Yes.
studio.
Yeah, Tom Moore and his studio are creating
They've done Secret of the Kells, Song of the Sea, and The Breadwinner.
Yeah, those guys are still doing traditional animation. And all that stuff is great.
Yeah.
And again, it's just not happening in Hollywood.
Yeah,
So-
we're still in glory days. If anything else, there is like so much experimental and beautiful animation being done now that I would definitely not say that hand-drawn animation is dead. And people who say that are silly and stupid and need to shut their mouths.
And or just unaware of all this other stuff.
Yeah.
All right. Let's move on to Ginger Wish. They asked, what's your opinion on rotoscoping? I think it's fine.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think it's just a tool.
yeah, it's one of the many tools that an animator can use. I think sometimes it is done poorly, which is more often when you take very literally take the rotoscoping. But I definitely think rotoscoping is a very good stepping off point
Oh, yeah.
to make
I mean,
even better animation.
asking what we think of rotoscoping is asking us what we think of oil paint. It's just a tool. Some people know how to use it really well, and some people don't know how to use it at all.
Yeah.
It's all just how you use the tool.
Yeah, I think I'm wondering if it was this question was asked more of like, how do you feel about like reference or like I mean it's probably about
No,
rotoscoping.
it's just rotoscoping.
I'm just wondering if there's like they're thinking like some particular like really bad bits of like rotoscoped animation, and yeah, that's going to exist. But there's also really good rotoscoped animation.
Oh yeah, most
I mean,
of the
look
films.
at Cinderella.
Yeah, most of the films we're going to be talking about here.
Oh wait, sorry, that hasn't out yet. I meant to say Snow White.
Yeah.
Look at Snow White. I mean, that's heavily rotoscoped, but it still looks really good for the most part.
Yeah, well, in a lot of the films we're going to cover in the Silver Age era of Disney, it's like that's a lot of rotoscoping is being done, but they make it look very good.
Yeah. All right, next up, Sketchy Topaz plus others asked in a similar form, are there any particular movies you're looking forward to reviewing in the future?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's like we've barely touched anything, and most of these films that we've watched so far are ones that we have not seen before. So of course we have our favorites coming up.
Yeah. There's I mean, of course there's some I'm looking forward to just because like I have a lot of nostalgic feelings for it, but quite honestly, I look forward to watching most movies.
Yeah, pretty much every one that we haven't seen before or we've seen before and are good, we're going to look forward to watching them so we can review them. The ones we aren't looking forward to are the ones that we have seen before and we know are bad.
Well, or movies that we've purposefully just avoided because it's like, no, I know I'm going to hate this.
Yeah,
No.
yeah. But a lot of that stuff we won't be getting to for years. So, yeah, what are we looking forward to? Most everything.
Name a movie you're looking forward to.
Oof. Dinosaur.
Dinosaur?
Dinosaur. Disney's Dinosaur.
That's going to be a fun one to talk
Because
about.
it's an interesting film.
Yeah.
And I do have some nostalgic feelings about it, but the film itself is just very, very interesting. There. What about you? What's one you're looking forward to talk about?
Plague Dogs. Because I'm looking forward to making you watch it.
Oh. Fine. Okay.
But also, Fox and the Hound.
Okay. And that one's coming up here relatively soon.
No.
No?
I mean, that's done in the 80s.
80s? Okay.
Yeah. So it's a while.
It's still a bit ways. Okay. All right. Next up, Winterpelt asks, what in general has surprised you most about all the films you've covered up to this point? And others also asked similar questions.
I don't really know. Surprised?
The quality?
You know what? Yes, the quality of
pretty
some of
much
these old films have blown me away.
Just the high level of quality from pretty much all of these films. It's the kind of thing where it's the beginning of an animation. You'd expect there to be
A lot of fumbling.
and or really poorly made films, but pretty much everything we've seen up to this point has, for the most part, been competently made. I mean, there's one or two we can point out, like, yeah, those definitely were not great on a technical level or anything.
Oh yeah, and even ones that we really like we can still point at and go like, this is still early animation. You can see like where okay, Snow White, for example.
Yeah.
The scene where the dwarves are washing their hands.
Yeah.
And
their heads
Dopey,
wibble.
yeah, Dopey has the soap in him or whatever, and he like sloshes his head around because there's a lot of water in his head, and his head
Wibbles,
wibbles,
and it looks bad.
And it looks bad.
Because they hadn't figured that out yet.
Because they hadn't figured that out yet. And you'd expect a lot of these kinds of mistakes from everybody in the industry at this point. Mm-hmm. And it's surprising how few of them there are.
Yeah. It's like everyone, pretty much all these studios brought their absolute A game to their, most of them, first animated films. Mm-hmm. Of course, Disney has made $1 billion at this point. Compared to everyone else, yeah.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, just the general quality of all the films, foreign or not.
Yeah, I was honestly really expecting some of the first foreign films we were going to watch.
Really hard to watch.
Yeah, to be real stinkers. And we've been pleasantly surprised with all of them. Even ones that we didn't care for that much, like The Singing Princess, was fine.
The only one I'm thinking of is like Princess Iron Fan.
Yeah.
I don't think I'll ever watch that one again just because it's so hard to watch just from a technical standpoint.
Right. But even that, they still had like impressive bits of animation. You're like, yeah, wow. For people who have not animated a lot at all in the past, you guys are doing pretty good. And especially since we've both gone to an animation school and we've seen beginner animation stuff. We've been beginner animators, and we're like, well, we couldn't have made a movie
Yeah, no.
that looked half this good, so...
Yeah. All right. Next up, Mr. Sir Psychopath, plus many others, have asked, I'm kind of new to this channel, so I was curious about what kind of relationship you two have. Are you a couple, or how long have you known each other? And a lot of people have asked, are we married? Are we a couple? What is our relationship? When did you guys meet? So this is just kind of the question to cover all of that. Yes, Tennille and I are married.
Yes.
Yeah, we got married about 3.5 years ago. In fact, here's our wedding picture. There you go. Yay. Ooh, it's a face reveal. Yeah, we got married 3.5 years ago. We met in high school. Just honestly kind of surprising. It's like I had no intentions of like finding someone in high school and absolutely marrying them. It happened to work out.
Yeah.
A
lot of high school relationships don't work. We are one of the few people.
We're one of the few, and I think it's because we weren't just a high school relationship.
Yeah.
It's like we only dated for 1 year of high school, and then I went off to college, and then we had a long distance relationship for 3 more years.
Was it only 3?
It was 3 years before we got married.
Okay.
Yeah.
It felt longer than that.
No. It's your last year of high school, and then 2 years after that.
Yeah.
And at the end of that 3rd year is when we actually got married.
Yep.
So, yeah. So that means we've been together for like 6.5 years?
Yep.
Give or take?
Probably.
Yeah. Okay.
And known each other longer than that.
Oh, yeah. We had known each other before that. We were in many of the same...
Theatrical,
like we did a lot of theater and other things and similar groupings and stuff.
Show choir.
Yeah. And there you go. Also, we're not planning on having kids anytime soon, so don't ask.
Yeah, please don't.
Just putting that out there. It's not anywhere near our priority list right now, so no.
No.
All right. Next up, Hugin YT asks, do you have any cats? What breed is it? How old are they? How many do you have?
We have one cat, Peridot. She is a nightmare.
She is a feisty, angry, adorable cat.
Also, here's a picture of her, because she's also cute.
Yeah, she's very cute, but she is a demon. And how old is she? Is she like a year and a half? 2?
She's probably 2 now. Probably coming close on 2.
Year and a half.
Yeah.
Year and a half. That seems more accurate.
Because we got her in like October, sometime around then. A friend from college
Found a cat.
found a kitten in their like storm drain, and rescued her. And then at the same time, Sean and I were like, we really want a cat. And she's like, I've got a kitten. And we're like, yes. So she came
a couple
to
weeks
a visit.
later,
Yeah.
she came up and visited, and we got ourselves a kitty.
Yep.
And she's been a demon ever since.
Yep. As far as breed, obviously we don't know, but I mean, she was just a feral cat. So
Yeah, just random short-haired wild
Yeah.
cat, as far as we can tell.
yeah.
All right, next up, the Mythical Ginger, plus many others, asked, what type of animation do you two find most visually appealing, such as traditional, 3D, or stop motion?
It might come as a shock to most of you, but I prefer traditional animation.
I would agree.
I love drawing, and I love how appealing drawing is and can be made. I love the art form of it. Not to say that like 3D or stop motion are inherently inferior. It's just I love the act of
Putting a pencil to paper.
putting a pencil to paper and drawing something that is real. Like you from nothing you've created something. And you could say the same thing about 3D or stop motion, but it's just so much more magical to me when it's traditional animation.
I would agree. I would definitely say traditional is my favorite. Next up would be stop motion, I think.
Yeah.
Just because it's so interesting and unique, and I have very little experience with it. It's like,
Yeah.
it's the magical other that I've had very little
Yeah, it's like
interaction with.
I've never like I've done 3D animation, I've done traditional animation. I've never done stop motion animation. But I find it fascinating that people have that much patience. And I say that yet again, even though it's like traditional animation takes a lot of patience, and 3D animation takes a lot of patience. But stop motion just takes it to a whole new level,
a different
in my opinion.
kind of patience.
Yeah, and I love it when you can see, like, the little touches that the animators add in stop motion, too.
Yeah. All right. Next up, Le Catty Cat asks, would you guys prefer a well-animated movie over one with a good story? So, good animation or good story. If you could only have one, which would you prefer?
We just experienced this with the package films. Where it was like all beautiful animation, but like meh stories.
Yeah, I definitely think I would prefer one with a good story. Because I am definitely a good story. I am a story person.
I don't know. To me, they have to be a whole. They have to be like, I don't feel satisfied with either. If it's a good story with bad art, like, I guess I could get into it, but the bad art makes it a worse story.
True.
To me.
Yeah,
And
I-
but if something's really pretty, it's like, well, this is just a lot of pretentious, pretty art with
No substance.
with no substance. To me, like, the two have to come together and be one.
It's not worth it unless you can have everything.
Yeah, exactly. I just want it all.
Okay.
Let me ask this one. You've asked most of the questions.
That's because I was the one that pulled them out, so I just figured I'd ask him.
Well, too bad. I'm
Okay,
gonna ask
fine.
this one.
All right, go ahead.
Art Kitties asks, what are your favorite aspects of the oh god, I'm messing this up. I should have left this to you. What are your favorite aspects of the animation from different cultures and places?
I feel like we kind of answered a lot of this already. Sort of.
Sort of, and yet not really. I don't know. There's still so little foreign films that we've actually covered.
That we've only gotten like a taste.
A little taste.
A tiny
of it.
taste of like what these countries can do and like their their styles and how they're forming and stuff. Because
Right. And it'll
has been
get
very
more
different.
interested. Like, what I'm really interested in is when we get into foreign films, like in this next decade, in these next few decades, before the internet becomes a thing, and before, like the world just,
multiculturalism of the
right.
the world culture still doesn't exist yet. So
Yeah, so they're going to be their most different and their most unique when we hit like the 80s.
or like very early 80s.
Very early 80s.
Because that's really when it starts all leaking into each other.
Yeah. So I'm really interested in seeing that. I know that doesn't really answer your question, but that's just kind of like what I'm thinking of right now.
Mm-hmm. Because, I mean, at this point, everything just has very unique, distinct styles, but we haven't seen enough of it to really
Form an opinion on
it. But I thought it was an interesting question, so I decided to bring it up.
Yeah.
Do you want the last one?
Yeah. Super Peps. Woohoo.
Our last question.
Yes. Says, when did you guys start getting interested in art and animation? Do you want to talk about this one first? Because I'm probably going to talk for a while.
Oh, that's true. That's a good question. I don't actually know.
Haven't thought about it that much?
No, I mean, I would say, yeah, I definitely watched a lot of animated things as a kid, and
yet at the same time, you're pretty sheltered away from it, too.
Yeah, I lived in a very conservative family.
Yeah.
I would say I really started getting interested in art as a whole probably around 2nd grade when I actually started doing a lot of my own drawing. Mm-hmm. And then it was like I started drawing things. I was drawing a lot of little monsters and stuff like that, and actually started befriending a lot of the other weird, nerdy kids. And they introduced me to like more cartoons and like video games and stuff like that, which just kind of spiraled out of control, I guess.
Yeah.
It's like I definitely didn't not grow up with animation or anything like that. It's just I think it was definitely probably around 2nd or 3rd grade that it really started getting rolling and just kept going and going until the point where like I was joining high school and I just didn't really care a whole lot about anything that wasn't animated.
Right. Well, but then also like when you went to college, you didn't pick animation as your major.
It's true. I chose graphic design because it was a more stable living thing. That was a mistake.
I converted you to animation
Yeah, you did.
later on. For me, and like I distinctly remember this moment, for me it was when I was 6 or 7 and we put in a Disney movie at home to watch. And I, of course, I'm 6 or 7, so, I still love animated films at that point. And the Walt Disney logo came on, and my mom was watching the movie with me, and she sighed, and she said, I remember the day Walt died. And for me being only 6 or 7, that just, like, put everything into perspective. Suddenly, these weren't just movies anymore that had my favorite characters and songs. Now, it was suddenly like, oh, this was made by someone.
Mm-hmm.
People made this. And of course, when I was, that young, to me, it was just like, oh, Walt Disney made this. And of course, as I've gotten older, I realize that's like not like multiple people make a film.
Mm-hmm.
But just from that moment onward, like I remember right after that, almost not paying attention to the movie at all and just asking my mom more questions about who Walt Disney was. Like Walt Disney wasn't just a brand name to me anymore. It was a person. And like I asked her, like, what do you mean when he died? Like, who was he? Tell me more about him, blah, 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 blah. So that was the moment for me. And from that moment onward, I was always fascinated with watching all the like documentary footage they would put on DVDs when they would release old movies.
Bonus features.
Bonus features and audio commentaries and and
Good
yeah,
stuff.
just it makes me emotional. But yeah, I love animation. And I've been wanting to be an animator ever since that moment.
Yeah, you've had this. You've been set in place for pretty much your whole life.
Yeah, I love animation dearly.
All right, and I think that's going to wrap it up for this Q&A episode. Actually, I do have one more question for you.
Oh,
Who's your favorite warrior?
Fernsong, because he's a sweet bean.
Okay. Mine's the one with the face colors.
Yep, that one.
Yep, and they got a body, too, probably covered in fur.
Do they have a tail? That's important.
Yeah.
Yeah?
I'll say yes. This one's got a tail.
All right. Cool.
That narrows it down.
Sorry to people who wanted us to answer any Warrior Cat questions. That'll come on a different video when Sean isn't just sitting here like, I read these books over 10 years ago, so I don't remember a thing.
It's true.
Yep.
All right, well, that'll wrap up this episode, and yeah, I guess.
Hope you all are having a fantastic day.
Hope you have a fantastic day. Feel free to share this and like the video if you want, and all those other YouTube things you're supposed to say.
Yeah.
And also, here's our Patreon, so you can give us money if you like our content.
Woo!
All right, see you in the next video where we do
Things.
whatever it may be.